Smoke Screen Podcast is brought to you by Creative Designs and More. It's Creative Designs, the letter N, More. Check out Wanda at Creative Designs and More on Facebook, or you can also check her out on TikTok at C Wanda B. That's SEE Wanda B. The letter B, man. I'm gonna tell you, y'all see my lighters I have, man. She does a great job. Any kind of party favor you need, coming to your party to design it, just let Wanda handle it, and I bet you she'll make it right for you. I promise you, man. Knock on wood, man. I promise you, dog. I would not lie to you. You ain't never lied to you on Smoke Screen, man. Make sure you checking out Creative Designs and More, man. Wanda will set you straight. I promise you, we'll get you right, man. Make sure you checking her out. And that's for our sponsors for today's episode.
Show up to the meetings. They get town halls. Like, follow them on social media because they'll advertise stuff like that. And as soon as they make the mistake of doing a town hall, you better be there and let them know what the problem is and make sure you're public about it. You know, you don't have to just, it doesn't even matter how you say it. Like, you just make your voice heard.
All right, y'all. Welcome back. Welcome back. Like I told you, I got a good episode for you today. I got Natasha Sutherland on, man. Natasha, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. We were talking about our week. How was your week as a whole?
It was a long week. but good. You know, I can't complain. Very, very fortunate and blessed, you know, that kind of thing. But you know, Florida politics, when you work in it, there's never a dull moment. So I'll put it that way. What about you?
Yeah, man. Real quick, I was thinking, I was like, I don't think it's any other state that's moving like this as far as the every day something coming out in a state.
Yeah, I mean, it really does feel like every day. You know, especially with a governor that it seems like he's got at least one press conference a day, right?
Yeah.
And there's some announcement of something, and every time, like, so I'm signed up for their press list, and so they'll email you, right, and say, oh, you know, he's about to do this thing, and every time I'm like, what is he about to do now? Now what?
And
So
you can do you try to play a game with yourself where you can guess like what
you
it's gonna
know,
be about?
so it's kind of my job to try to guess, right?
Uh-huh.
It's kind of part of what I do is to try to sort of take the temperature of what's happening, right? Just in general, following the news in general, knowing what other people are up to, knowing what you know, other governors and other states are up to too, right? Because I know you were talking about like Florida is super unique, but man, Texas is competing with
Texas,
us,
yeah.
you know? So sometimes it's really about, yeah, knowing what's going on and kind of trying to get an idea of like, okay, if he's doing a press conference. So for example, this week, you know, he put out something and he's like, oh, I'm going to be in Tallahassee. We're going to do a press in Tallahassee. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I already know based on like my background and experience, like he's got to put out his recommendations for the budget. Right. So I'm thinking, oh, that's the budget conference probably. So stuff like that.
So important because I try to pinpoint because I know that he's always in Central Florida. He's never really up here in Tallahassee. So when it's something important, that's when he's usually up here.
Exactly. Like if it has to do with like the like state general, like state government business, like a budget or something big. Oh yeah, he's going to do it up here in Tallahassee, the capital.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's a little bit looking into your job. But who is Natasha Sutherland?
Man. Well, let's see. You know, I think I'll kind of take it back a little bit. So I was raised as a military child. So, you know, it's kind of that very common, like people will say, oh, you know, where are you from? Where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I don't know how to answer that. You know, because I was born in upstate New York and, you know, because of my dad being in the Navy for over 20 years, we moved every few years. So I've lived all over the place. So there's that, kind of feeling like a person of the world. But, I came to Florida like for the first time to go to college here. And that's kind of how I started my life as a Floridian. But, in very broad strokes, I'm a Black woman, I'm a multicultural woman, half Italian, half Jamaican, trilingual. Um, I don't know, a Libra, like, I don't know, right? Like, so, and, true to most Libras, I very much believe in fairness and justice. And that's probably why I do what I do. I'm kidding. But it's a lot of different things, right? But I'm somebody that, I'm really passionate about the work that I do. I'm really passionate about my family and, maintain those connections. My family's spread all over the place. I've got people down in South Florida. That's my Jamaican side. And then I've got my mom's side. They're all mostly in Europe. Matter of fact, she was the only one that came to America, like, and became an American citizen and stuff. Both my parents, being immigrants. So I'm first generation American. Then I married military, so I couldn't really stay out of that.
Yeah.
So military spouse, just a whole melting pot, I guess, of different things.
So I know it's jumping ahead in the docket, but because you were raised like that, do you think that's what kind of gives you that unique ability to be able to talk to different people and be able to, embrace different people and see eye to eye with different people? Even if you have different opinions, you can still, okay, let's at least have a conversation.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, I've got I know it's super rare nowadays,
Hmm.
but I've got friends from all different political backgrounds,
Hmm.
all different colors, all different, I mean, and that's thanks to like the military life that I had. Military people tend to be kind of on the conservative side of things and stuff. So absolutely. I had to learn to get along with everybody, right? And even, down to, choosing to, for example, learn Spanish. I grew up speaking Italian and English in my family.
Hmm.
And, I was living north of Chicago when I was younger, and people saw me because of the way I look and didn't really know, what category I fit into. And so sometimes they would just come to me and just start speaking Spanish. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I better learn. So I did, and I thought I'll just take
Yeah.
it in high school. And the more I learned and the more I, got to know different kinds of people and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's always something that you can find common ground on with somebody else. Um, you know, a- at the at the end of the day, most of us, work hard, want to have a decent life, we want to have, good relationships with our friends, with our family, our community. And so I think that, when we remember that, I feel like, we can have a decent conversation with anybody.
That's true, man. That's
Yeah.
so true. Now, were you into politics growing up?
No, not
Not
at
at all.
all. No,
Oh.
I know. So, I mean, but I think that's common, right? I don't know. I
Mhm.
mean, when did you start getting into politics at a young age?
Yeah, I remember my mom had me watching. I forgot what election it was, but Bush. I think it was Bush's first term, and we
Okay.
had in the back of my dictionary. I still have the dictionary, but it's the map, and we were writing down which like states he won, trying to see. So she had me into politics and just watching and trying to learn. But now I'm trying to kind of learn policy because I'm learning that that's really what politics is. So, but yeah, I was into
Mhm.
politics a little bit, but you weren't into it at all.
Yeah, not really. I think that's awesome, by the way, that your mom got you started young. I think growing up, two, like I said, two immigrant parents, right?
Hmm.
Um, and my dad was, he was lower enlisted for most of my life, so he was working, multiple jobs. And a lot of people don't know this, but um, the military, depending on your rank, doesn't pay a lot, and so he still had to, do a little extra to make ends meet and things like that. And I think my family, you know, pay their taxes and all those basic things. But I don't know that we had um, the family history of civic engagement in the US, right? And understanding kind of how that works for a lot of different reasons. And so I didn't really understand um growing up just how important politics is to everything in your life. And that's something that I came to understand as I got older, went to college. I've been a voter since I could be a voter. I knew that, like, that was something that my family instilled in me was, okay, you got to vote. at a minimum. And so, that's when, that interest, that passion first started.
I got you.
Yeah.
But so now I was looking into your LinkedIn, and so I was like, man, how old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
No, I don't mind. 38.
38. That's like you've done a lot of things. Like you usually see, you can just search a name on LinkedIn, but if you can, if you see her, if you would like, that's usually somebody on retirement, about the retirement.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
yeah, that's what
Thank
I
you.
would think as far as the jobs that you've had. If you want to just talk about, if you can, some of the like positions that you've held.
Yeah, definitely. And so I'm going to attribute a lot of that stuff to the military again, right?
Hmm.
Moving around every few years, you have to constantly reinvent yourself and kind of figure out how to get a job,
Ah,
if you want to have a career, right?
yeah.
And so that's kind of where that started. So, but listen, I've been kind of an entrepreneur since I was a kid. I was always trying to figure out ways to make money, selling candy bars at school or babysitting or whatever. And once I was legally able to work, was 15, and I started working at the mall and, that kind of thing. And I think that understanding like the power and the value of making your own money,
Hmm.
um, to me, I also understood that in order to have a viable career, being open to a lot of different opportunities and not really shy away from something new and different and being willing to learn and stuff like that. And so with that in mind, having to be adaptable. So college, undergrad, I followed my passion of talking to people and stuff. And so I did, foreign languages. And I had the mindset of, okay, once I get my degree, my undergrad degree, what am I going to do with it? So I did a study abroad program. I got to teach English in Peru. And my professor at the time said, hey, we're going to do this master's program in education. And you can learn how to basically teach foreign language. And I thought, oh, that's perfect. So I got my master's in second language education or multilingual multicultural education. And so that was my original plan, right? Was to
Yeah.
get my teacher certification, teach, be like a Spanish teacher or something along those lines. And then life happened, right? I got
Yeah.
married. We moved to Germany. And because that was my husband's first duty station.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, well, I don't know if I can teach Spanish here. And I didn't find that job. And so I had to be adaptable and find something else. So, you mentioned, before about my veterans transition position. So I was,
Yeah.
transition assistant, like counselor, basically. So what did that entail exactly? That was
Yeah.
basically sitting in an office, and soldiers would come in, right? So my husband
Hmm.
was in the army, and they would come in and they'd go, okay, I'm getting ready to leave the military, and I got to figure out what I'm going to do next. Can you help me?
Hmm.
My job was to help them figure that out.
Man, so that's where you would get people like, because everybody in the military. That's what gets me about them. Some like the racists that might go in the military, the racism might go on. A lot of those, it's not everybody doesn't speak English. That's in the military, so you were able to use your language capabilities and to converse with different people in the military to assist them. I was noticing a couple weeks ago. I guess it came out that they were put in a program to assist the military. I think it's like House Bill 73.
Mhm.
That's allowing them to be able to get housing. How was the housing and everything that you saw, as far as the military being able to come into a housing once they got off duty?
Yeah, I mean it's hard. Military veterans, a lot of them join the military super young, right? A lot of them
Hmm.
18, like my husband, like right out of high school, right? And a lot of these folks stay in and do 20 years, and then it's time to retire. But if you think about that, that would be about my age, right? Getting ready to
Yeah.
retire and start a whole new career in the civilian world, like in the rest of the world. After moving every few years, after probably deploying. I mean, we're right now, all the veterans that we have, most of them have at least experienced something like that. And it's really hard to transition. Not to mention, first of all, imagine the kinds of jobs you have in the military. They don't really translate super well into everyday
Civilian life.
language,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're like, "Oh, I was an armor," or "I was you know, I don't even know. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but you know, some of the people that were out in the field, right? Some of the
Hmm.
people, a gunner, whatever. Just so many different kinds of jobs, right? And so it's hard to get a job when you leave the military.
Yeah.
Just leave it that. And that's part of why my job existed, was to
Mhm.
help with that, of like, hey, this is how you write your resume, right? You don't need to do that in the military, really, right? That's not really something you have to figure out. Or here's how you apply for college. A lot of people didn't go to college. They didn't know, how to do that. And so helping them figure that out. So housing is another thing, right? You leave the military, if your job prospects aren't great or they're a challenge, it's going to be hard for you to get housing as well. And so, I very much believe that our veterans, we got to do everything we can to help them, in their next step in life, and be productive members of society. So
I gotcha, because I never really thought, because like some of the, when they get out, they might not want to deal with being like in an arm. Like I was thinking they could like if somebody getting out of military could do like secure like Brinks trucks, but you might not want to deal with that type of situation anymore. So where do you go
yep.
from there when that's all that you've been doing the past
Hmm.
20 years? That's and then all ties into mental health with the military too. So it all plays hand
Absolutely.
in hand. But
You got it.
where were you a university professor at? A professor at?
So I adjunct on occasion at Florida State University.
All right.
So with the Italian program, so on occasion I'll teach some of the elementary Italian classes. It's just something I love, something that just a
Second
passion of
nature to
mine.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a passion, right? It's something where I get to, take a break from political life and just sit in a classroom with a bunch of students that, the cool thing about teaching Italian is
Hmm.
you get really unique students because it's not a common language to learn. And so a lot of the times the students that are there, they want to learn it. They have a reason, like a personal connection to it. So it's a lot of fun. And, by the end of the class, we're, doing a class party and I'm showing them how to make espresso and, that kind of thing. And it's just a lot of fun.
I got you. Now
Yeah.
this next job, then we'll move on. The communication director for Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Service. How was that? How was that position?
Yeah, so I was deputy communications
I
director.
definitely,
So,
yeah,
yep.
I got you.
We did have a communications director, so I was number 2. Um, a lot of fun as well. Super I learned a lot in that job. So when you're doing communications, so folks have to understand the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services is a government, state agency that regulates and manages so many things, right? From Department of Food and Nutrition, so folks that make sure that our kids have healthy meals at school, to like, oh my God, during the pandemic, right? Making
Hmm.
sure that our kids were getting those lunches, those packed lunches, right? That was part of the Department of Ag. To aquaculture, if you enjoy like oysters and stuff like that, and making sure that that's all healthy, fruit and veg, food safety, Forest Service, like for forest fires and making sure that those are, they have helicopters, like agricultural law enforcement. So the Department of Ag does a lot. And then they also do consumer services. So if if you're having issues with, like you think you've been scammed or something, or you're, the do not call list, like all of this stuff is regulated or dealt with by that department. And it's at the state level. So it actually has nothing to do with President Biden, has nothing to do with, it's people just have no idea, right?
Yeah.
And so my job at the time was to help make sure people did understand what the department was all about, how to take advantage of the services, highlight the good work. I mean, that the people in the department are doing. There are some amazing, brilliant people that work in the department that they know the ins and outs of, whatever it is that they do so well.
Hmm.
And making sure that, and it doesn't matter who's the commissioner of agriculture. Like these are folks that have just been there for, decades, right? And they're the ones that make sure that our food is safe. I mean, it's incredible, right? And so I really, really enjoyed that, and just doing all I could to make sure that I'm connecting people with the services that they provide.
Yeah, my mom, she actually just retired last year, and she was over Marion County School Service, their food service
Hmm.
down there. So she was a big push to get them to do the free lunch during the COVID and make sure the buses were organized to get in. She was like, Brandon, you wouldn't know how hard it is just for people don't want to do it. They don't want to support it. I was like, why wouldn't you want to support the kids? They're not in school right now. Why wouldn't you? But it's like the same people that didn't support it, now they're being over the school boards,
Right.
and that's what's really really crazy. And then too, like, were you over, you saw like the permits for the weapons, right?
Right.
So, and now we got all this about the permitless carry. So,
Mm. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, that is also managed at the Department of Ag, the concealed carry weapons license. And so they're the folks that make sure they do the background checks and the fingerprinting and make sure that you're meeting the requirements in law. But you're absolutely right, Brandon. The bill was filed to basically eliminate the permitting process completely. And that bill is actually up next week in the first committee, if folks are interested, Tuesday. And I don't know if people know this, but you can actually go to either the floridachannel.org or you can go to myfloridahouse.gov and you can watch live or you can watch the recording later to see how your elected officials are talking about and dealing with that bill.
I tweet it every time. I sit and watch it at work all day. That's all I watch. The Florida channel, man.
Yep.
It's so like, I like to go into some of those like off, like topics I wouldn't even think of listening to what they got going on. I was like, I listened to the Board of Governors. That was interesting. Then the Citizens insurance one. I listened to that one, but they are pretty interesting. Things that really, really affect us.
Yep, exactly.
I gotcha. But that kind of segues into the Florida Watch, man. This is a pretty interesting company, man. Can you explain what the Florida Watch is all about?
Absolutely. So we are actually a nonprofit organization, and we are a progressive nonprofit social welfare organization, a C4. And our mission is essentially to look out for everyday Floridians. We want to, serve truth, hold our politicians, our leaders accountable, and empower voters really for change, whether that's through education around these issues or it's, hey, we've got a people's first report card and these are how these lawmakers voted, right? And so that kind of what they've been up to if you've been busy living your life, so that when it comes time to vote, you can kind of check up on them and check out that report card. So we just work really hard to try to connect people to what's happening up here in Tallahassee. The state is huge. A lot of people don't have the time or the means to come up here. They're not sitting on the Florida Channel like you are, Brandon, or like me. And so we do our best to try to help folks out and to kind of know what's going on.
Exactly why I started doing Digging in the Ashtray, just because I know everybody ain't got time to or feel like watching that or really care about it until it really matters. So at least you're out there, somebody out there doing it. So I know for me, it's real tough. Sometimes if something comes out, I usually wait a week just to talk about it, just so I can get everything, because it usually all comes out in the wash in the next week. So how important is that with the governor eyeing for the presidency in the White House? How important is it for you to make sure you're going out in Florida Watch to producing the best information and most important information and the fact and not just some narrative? How important is that for you?
That's hugely important. So, Florida Watch and the communications hubs, kind of what we like to call ourselves with Progress Florida, we have a research department where their job is basically to be dedicated to combing through public records and kind of finding commonalities and patterns and aggregating that data and making it content that's digestible. And so when you talk about things like who are the campaign donors, or where is that money going and stuff like that, I would point folks to our project, DeSantis Watch, and that's at DeSantisWatch.org, and you can actually look at that, right? We have an issues section. We have a section, and I'm pulling it up because I'm like wanting to remember the names of it. I don't want to give anybody the wrong thing. Influence Watch, right? And so that's where our research folks kind of put together a database of who these donors are, because you got to think, when it comes to politics, money is a huge part of that. And knowing where the money's coming from might help you to understand why politicians do what they do, right? Because, just follow the money, right?
Man, that's why I had a way I found out about you is I had Sean Shaw on, and I think you retweeted the episode, and then I started researching you, and it's just so crazy because I've been watching and I've been talking about on Digging in the Ashtray, like where he's at in different areas. I was like, he's never been really like over like a year ago. He was never really in Florida. He was in Pittsburgh, Texas. I know he's about to have a big dinner out in Texas. And I'm like, man, this money is coming in. Now I know I'm just jumping around in my notes, but
No,
about
you're
this
fine.
this gas the gas stove initiative or something like that. Like in my mind, I always try to think what's the next move, and does he have some company in mind that he's doing business with, a gas company that he wants to run? I'm like, why would you? What's this big push about? They want to take your gas stoves. What is this about? But
Yeah, I mean, I love where your head is at.
yeah,
Cause yeah, that's how I think. I'm like, okay. Like when I see a whole hoopla like on the internet, I'm like, oh, everybody's mad about something. And I'm like, well, what's really going on here?
yeah. Like, what's his next? His next move,
What's the
man.
deal? What is the deal? Why are we doing this? Yeah, so and that's so funny because the gas stove thing, like we like to joke about it. Because I'm just like, man, we got 99 problems, man.
Yeah, the gas.
We're gonna worry about gas stove.
Yeah, man.
We're gonna worry about gas stove. What are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah, I mean, and so it's funny because he just released his the governor, his recommendations for the budget, right? So he doesn't do the budget, the legislature does that, so the House and the Senate. But he puts his recommendations. He tells them, hey, y'all, this is what I want y'all to do. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was like a tax break in the millions on gas stoves, like as part of this whole hoopla. And I'm thinking like, okay, but like, what about like most people actually have electric stoves in our state? So
Yeah.
like, who's paying him off to make him, like, what is this? To me, it sounds like free PR for gas stoves. That's what it sounds like to me. But I mean, I'm not basing it on anything. I'm just thinking out loud here. But we could be spending that money on so many other things that we're not, like fighting human trafficking or helping people with disabilities or training veterans for the workforce, right? Something that I would really love to see, where we're only putting a couple $1 million instead of, $7 million on gas stoves.
It got me thinking, man. I know this is going into almost like a digging in the ashtray type episode, but I saw they're giving the contractors a break in the housing. And so instead of giving the money to the buyers or the renters, they're giving it to the contractors. And then with the gas, is somebody building a house with gas stoves in it, and now you got this whole big thing. But that going into the housing, so that I go my head, like just like you, it just go down to what's next with it. You go down a rabbit hole with it, man. Sometimes, but with this housing stuff, man, we talked about with the military, but when do you think they're going to look at the renter or the buyer and say we need to assist them, and not give almost not write-offs, but kind of write-offs to the contractors and the builders and helping them out, and saying that it's going to trickle down, but we never see the trickle down to it, man. Like, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so the housing crisis in Florida is really acute. Like it's up there compared to the rest of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, I can imagine folks that are listening, whether you're a renter or a homeowner, your pocketbook is being affected. Your property insurance is going up. Heck, even utilities are fixing to go up for everybody.
I saw that. Yeah.
And then you've got like big corporate landlord types that are like buying up housing and then like jacking up the rent.
Goldman Sachs buying out a whole neighborhood and turning every house into renting. Like, come on, man. Where's the ownership? Thought this land of the free, but nobody's free to own anything because these companies own. But yeah, keep going. My bad.
No, you're on it, man. You can do it for me. Like, honestly, I mean, it's about what are we incentivizing? Are we incentivizing the big guy or the little guy, right? To have a sense of freedom and to be able to own a home and have your own, and man, profits. Like it's just certain politicians are going to choose profits over people, right? To maintain power. There is a bill right now that's out. The Senate president has a priority bill around housing, and that's actually going to be heard this week. But one of the things that kind of got me a little annoyed, and I kind of had a feeling it was coming, is they're going to make it so that your city or your county, local government isn't going to be able to put any sort of limits on rent, right? So like in some states, there are limits to how much your rent can go up. Like So even like 10%, I feel like 10% is like a reasonable amount of money. Like, okay, come on, don't be charging me more than 10% on my rent. So now they're making it so that we can't do that because recently, in Central Florida, there was an initiative on the ballot locally for folks like regular people decided enough was enough and they
Mhm.
wanted limits. And so they passed it, but then they didn't allow it to go through. And so now the state legislature they saw that and they were like, oh, heck no, we're going to stop that now. And so we need relief. People need relief. Rent is out of control. And they're trying to make it so that can happen. And I don't really, I can't speak for these people in power that are making these decisions, but I definitely wonder, what kind of deals they're making, right, for this to be a thing. I mean, we'll see if the bill moves, but if it's a priority, it's probably going to become, a law. But we'll see.
And now going into the session, let's talk about the legislature. Now, I think we got a special session this week, right? Did we
Yeah,
just have a special session though?
man, I feel like every other week is a special session. It's not special anymore at this point. Like, this isn't special. I was talking to one of my friends who, they're a lawmaker here, and I was like, girl, they're gonna have to start paying you full time because they have you up here full time. Like, I
I was
feel like
just
I should
saying,
get more.
he must have somebody in renting up here for them to get a house or something. Because usually, because I used to work at Publix, and I worked at the Publix on Park Ave and Blairstone,
Mhm.
so it was right down from the Capitol. So I would see all kind of like officials coming in after they get out of session, getting a sub or salad or sushi on Wednesdays. I was just like, and that was around March for a couple months. Then you'll never see him again, but you'll see him the next year. But I just left Publix a couple months ago. I was thinking, man, I probably see these people all the time coming in now because they've been here since the year really started.
Yeah, I mean, even before the year started, they've just been up here. Like he did. They called for a special session on property
Mm-hmm.
insurance and ended up making it worse. They had a special session before that about something I don't even remember. Like, it's to the point where it's like it's year round, and it is what it is. But yeah, so there's a special session
Mm-hmm.
next week, but there's also committee weeks that lead up to regular session, which happens in March. And I don't know where your listeners are with all of this, but just for folks that may not know, session is when your state lawmakers decide to make or change the laws here in our state. So and every year the only thing that they have to do is pass a budget. So that means funding departments like Department of Ag and making sure that Bright Futures is funded, making sure our schools, our public schools have the funding that they need, that kind of thing. Like that's the one mandatory constitutional thing they have to do. But then they come up here and do a bunch of foolishness. So I'm like, but yeah, so next week there's going to be the housing bill, like I mentioned. There's going to be the concealed carry, so getting rid of that completely, so making it permitless carry of a concealed
So
firearm.
they're gonna go ahead and vote for that.
They're going to start voting. Yep.
Start
So it's
voting
going
for
to.
it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
What's the whole put? What's the rush? What's the rush about it? Why not wait like a couple weeks?
I mean, why not do it now so that by the time we all got to vote, we done forgot about it and who did it and who did what. Right. Well, and then
Yeah.
on top of that, right? I mean, if the governor is looking to run for president like we think he is,
Mm-hmm.
he's got to start pandering to the far right
Mm-hmm.
folks that are going to be voting in the Republican primary, right? And so he's got to start throwing out these sort of exciting red meat issues like that to be more enticing because he's going to have to, well, Trump announced, right? So he's got to out Trump and whoever else is going to jump in the race. And so that means things like permitless carry. So anybody can conceal carry a weapon in public with no training, no fingerprint, no background, nothing, right? Just whenever, however. On top of that, they're working on defunding education completely, right? Public schools with HB1. And then you've got, abortion coming up again, and they're going to make it more
Hold on, I was going
extreme.
to ask you about that. What I did because I've been waiting for him to say something about this one, but he's been holding his tongue a little bit, kind of putting a little bit of information out, but not putting everything fully. When do you think he's going?
I think it'll be once they have focus grouped it enough, tested it enough to figure out exactly when and how. I mean, nothing that, these people in charge do is by accident. I think that's one of the things we have to be mindful of anytime we see things like, oh, there's a special session. Oh, it's going to be on this and that. It's all calculated. It's all predetermined things that they're doing based on whatever it is that makes sense for the next step. And that's ambition, right? So it doesn't matter what the people need. Doesn't matter the fact that we're out down here mad at each other about DEI and books and don't say gay and this, that, and the other. We're all fighting with our neighbors, mad over nonsense. Meanwhile, they're taking these calculated steps for the next big thing, because that's really what this is about, is power. And how do you do power? Money, right? And so,
man, it gets me because like the school situation, like why are you targeting like the public school? Why not try to assist the public schools? Why you want to take out the public schools? And then have you ever seen a governor or somebody in office that would attack both like K through 12 and go at, colleges at universities at the same time? Usually it's one by one, but at the same time, you're taking down this small one just to get to this big one. And I don't know. It's sad.
I mean, it's a lot, and it's intentional. It's so that we're all running around with our hair on fire because we're just too busy trying to keep up with it, that, we have a hard time getting organized and figuring out what fights are worth fighting. For folks that don't know, right, the party that's been in charge has been in charge for over 2 decades, right? So Republicans have been in charge of Florida for more than 20 years. And what that means is they set the agenda. What that means is they pass the laws they want to pass. They don't need Democrats to support. They don't need, any of that. And so you'd think after 20 something years, they'd be happy with how things are because they done had all the control. Like, what's left for y'all to do, right? Like, you've been in charge. Like, so anytime they're like, oh, we're going to fix all this stuff. You mean the stuff you did? Because it's been years. I'm confused.
Oh, so that's funny. I had tweeted, I was like, Florida equals test state. Because I was like, it's all this stuff they're doing it's got to be a test for something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's a test for, what they can get away with, how extreme things can get, because it's really about control. All of it. Controlling how we think, controlling what we read, controlling what we do with our bodies, controlling whether or not we can afford our homes, whether that's the price of them, whether that's the wages that don't go up to match the cost of living, because that keeps us all busy and occupied and easy to control. And that keeps them in power. And, the corporations that fund them can continue to, also maintain that power and wealth and all of that. It's to maintain a status quo of the haves and have-nots is what it is. That's greed. I mean, that's really what it's about.
Like, it's funny that you said about they've been in power, because I was like, man, if all this changes that they're doing to the education, if they're saying Florida is so high in the education, what's the need for all these changes then? What's the need for all this? And what really got me, and we'll move on and close it on out of, what really got me was this new college information. And then with, you still work at Florida State?
So it depends. Yeah. As an adjunct, if they need me. Yep.
Never mind then. I was going to say about that statement they made yesterday, but
I mean, I saw it. You can talk about it. Yeah, go for it.
I was like, man, now you got universities scrambling, and then with what's his name, Sassy, that's going to be at UF. He starts at UF on Monday. Like, how can you just gut a whole university, a whole college that's built free thinkers that you're trying to say that you're trying to bring in? And you're gutting this whole university's staff out just to bring in your people, and they often run. It's like they didn't even get settled into their chair. They've been had the chair for a couple months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this type of stuff isn't new to like human history, right? I mean, we see examples of this from previous times in especially in in Western civilization, right? When the lead up to World War II and fascism and all these different, these different things and authoritarian sort of ways of doing things. And it is, part of it is attacking free speech, attacking thinking, attacking, the ability to learn and to progress and grow as a society. And so it's kind of scary. It really is. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were saying, oh yeah, in Virginia, they're going to, here they got rid of they're blocking the AP African American Studies class, right? Well, in Virginia, they're apparently they don't want anybody to learn about fascism. And I'm just thinking, man, so what else, what's next? And as somebody who started off their career as an educator, it's heartbreaking. Knowledge is so important. Whether it's, when I was teaching to, when I was doing the transition counselor, like that was one of the things I really learned with the transition assistance is like the knowledge that you do or don't have can make such a huge impact on your future and what doors are going to open for you, and the kind of life that you can have. And so it's a lot.
And like, if you want to just talk about AP course information, because that's been the biggest thing right now in the state, about AP and what little bit of knowledge you have on it. Great knowledge.
So the AP African American Studies course is for high school students. It was piloted in multiple states. It's something they've been working on, the College Board, for I think at least a decade, right? And from what I was reading, like 300 or so professors, educators, and stuff have been working on it for a while. And the week of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I think it was either the day of or day after, thereabouts, the governor comes out and says, hey, we're going to block AP African American Studies from Florida. We're just not going to give you all the choice. And when people said, okay, well, why? He outlined, or the Department of Education outlined a bunch of different, authors and, topics that they said conflicted with or was against the law. And they could technically say that because it's a law they passed last session, that they love to call the Stop Woke Act. I like to call it the Stop Learning Act, because that's exactly what it's doing, is it's preventing us from learning about anything. And they made it so broad. They were like, oh, it's CRT and, all these words that nobody's ever heard of until now. No, it's broad, so they can just say whatever they want and block whatever they want. That's what it is. They don't want us to learn about the full depth and breadth of Black history, which is rich and multi-layered and beautiful and necessary to learn. All of the different people that contributed to our progress as a people, and even modern concepts, right? Like the Black Lives Matter movement that just happened, that with the most recent killing, is something that we still have to face and deal with, right? And learn about and figure out how we solve the problems of systemic racism, of, just the oppression, the oppressive systems that we have in place in this country. But no, heaven forbid we learn about it so that we can fix it. And that's unfortunate. And I think, when it comes to things like that, for some people, like the governor, it's a nice academic exercise, a conversation. But for people like you and me, it's our life.
Yeah.
It's not a conversation. So things are different.
I don't understand it, man. Cause like I was seeing, I saw that like the professor, you're doing everything out that the professors voted on. Like I forgot her name. I meant to take it down, but she's a writer up here in Tallahassee with the Tallahassee Democrat. She actually put out an article about it and basically saying how like books like Malcolm X was in it, but his biography was in it. Maya Angelou's books was in it. And then all of a sudden they just threw it out. Now he said, I don't want that anymore. After these professors voted for it, now you're coming, I don't want it anymore. Like, I don't know. How can you just try to wash somebody's history out of people's knowledge, man? You can't do that, really. So that's really important why we do what we're doing right now, and why you continuously do what you're doing right now, just so, and your face is out there so they can't say, just try to write our story. We out here making it our own.
Yeah, we have to. I mean, we have to, right? I mean, we've got these opportunities to put ourselves out there, to get that message out there. And we just have to do it, whether y'all are listening or not. I'm gonna just keep TikToking. I'm gonna keep tweeting. I'm gonna keep, until I can't, until they censor that too. I don't know. Right. We have to, I can't imagine, doing anything different, even topics like, work by Ta-Nehisi Coates, right. And reparations.
Mhm.
And even just exploring that, they took out, things like mass incarceration and how that affects the Black community significantly. They don't want us to talk about that either, right? I mean, so we just gotta keep fighting, man.
That right there let me know he had somebody in privatized prisons. That right there, him not wanting that's okay. You don't want somebody knowing about what's really going on. But I don't know, man. How can you dictate what we learn, how we gonna learn it? It just doesn't make any sense, and it kind of, it feels. I'm glad I grew up and we grew up in our time, because I feel sorry for the kids that they're gonna have to take a next step and have to actually want to learn more. But how important is it for us to continue to keep trying to learn more, and also getting into at least a little bit of information about politics?
Oh my gosh, it's huge. It's so important. Every single person that's listening to this, you are so important to this process. I think people, they fail to realize there's one Governor DeSantis and there's like over 20 million of us. The power is really with us. But it's if we actually wield that power. We have to, stay as informed as we can, right? I understand people have lives, they have to work, they have families, they got to get the kids to bed, they got to make dinner, all those different things. But pick an issue, pick one issue that is really, really important to you. And connect with, a reputable organization that, they're advocating for that issue. So maybe it's education, maybe it's voting rights, right? Because how about without the right to vote, we don't have anything, right? So, there are organizations out there working hard to make sure that they're informing people of what's going on. I'm happy, Brandon, to share a list with you after if you want to share it with your listeners. But, just plug into one organization, literally just one, and maybe attend one of their Zooms. Maybe show up to a meeting in person if you're comfortable, because they're looking for people like you that are willing to send an email, make a phone call, send a text. Like they have really cool text programs where you just click and it just sends text to people, right? And gets them, informed. I mean, there are just so many different ways to get involved. I know it can sound really overwhelming, the conversation that you and I are having about all of these things, but it's my job to be inundated with this 24/7. And a lot of people, they don't have that kind of bandwidth. But, there are organizations you can be involved in and kind of follow along. And believe it or not, these elected officials, they seem out of reach, but they're really not. Y'all, you can DM them. They all got Instagram. They all got Facebook. Like, show up. They got to do meetings. You show up to the meetings. They get town halls. Like, follow them on social media because they'll advertise stuff like that. And as soon as they make the mistake of doing a town hall, you better be there and let them know what the problem is and make sure you're public about it. You don't have to it doesn't even matter how you say it. Like, you just make your voice heard. That's really, really important. And so it's the bare minimum is voting, right?
Mhm.
Absolute floor. But we got to do more than that, because we can change things for the better. We can make enough noise that the legislature decides, ooh, this issue is a little bit too touchy. We're afraid that we might, lose a few seats here and there in the House of Representatives, the Senate. We're going to lose just a little bit of power. Maybe we not worry about this after all, right? And that's happened.
Mhm.
Bills will come up that are terrible. People come up here, they get really upset. They tell them how they feel. And then all of a sudden, quietly, that bill just goes away, right? And that's because of the power of the people.
I got you. I'm trying to think of, because I attended their meeting the other day. I don't want to get their name wrong because I also want to give them a shout out for it. Oh man, I was looking at my emails. Is it Run for Now? Let's see.
I know there's Run for Something.
Go Run for Something.
Go Run for Something.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you want to expound on them a little bit, that was a great session that they had. Just getting knowledge on it.
Oh,
But if you
good.
know a little bit about that company, that
Yeah,
yeah,
so that, I know that
organization.
organization works really hard to get everyday people to run for office of some kind at the local level, at the state level, at any level. We're always looking for good people that just want to make a difference, right? I haven't had a chance to go to any of the programs, but I love all the content on their social media. I think they had Leader Driscoll taking over their social media account recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm,
But
yeah.
yeah, run for something. People should definitely check that out. I mean, other organizations like Equal Ground, Florida Rising, Florida for All, Florida Immigrant Coalition. I mean, Florida Conservation Voters, Planned Parenthood. I mean, I could shout out all day long. And these organizations are full of amazing, wonderful, kind-hearted, good people that they just want to make a positive impact on our lives, and they're working every single day to do that.
I got you, man. And I just pulled up the individual, the author of that article I referenced. Her name is Anna Lesson, Lessan. So shout out to you, Anna. But also just really quick, I just kind of start looking at, because saw somebody tweeted out, was like, why black folks don't have like somebody to speak for them. I was like, they do though, because I remember hearing when I was young about the Black Caucus and the white
Mhm.
with the on the federal level, and I started researching, and I came upon noticed Florida has a Black Caucus here locally. So if you want to talk about them, you reference Leader Driscoll, and it man, that's a strong sister, man, to be up there taking it head on, though, just talking, man. It's every time I just sit and watch. I love. That's how what I've been doing is. You said pick a topic. What I've been doing is pick somebody that speaks in one of those meetings and just looking them up, and researching what they're about and what they stand on, and that's how I've been kind of getting a little bit more knowledgeable about things. Because once you learn somebody, then you learn the topics that they're going for and what they're pushing. Then by the time you're done with it, you kind of know everything. But if you want to talk about the Black Caucus and Leader Driscoll a little bit.
Yeah. So Leader Fentress Driscoll, she is a state representative out of the Tampa Bay area, and the first Black woman to lead a House caucus in the history of Florida. Pretty amazing. So she's kind of my hero. Just gonna put that out there. And not only that though, but she really is a champion for the issues that people like you and me really care about,
Mhm.
making sure we can live good lives, making sure our schools have, adequate funding for our kids and, that sort of thing. And so she's phenomenal. But the Florida Legislative Black Caucus is made up of all of the Black House and Senate members of the state legislature. So, like you said, at the state level, there's obviously the congressional version of that up in DC. And it's actually bipartisan, believe it or not. I mean, whether or not members of both parties are participating, and that kind of thing, it really just depends on the member, right? But it's an organization that seeks to champion issues for Black Floridians, whatever those may be. In previous years, I've worked with members of the caucus on different things and kind of helping them. Like one of the times they were like, "Oh, let's think about what's the Black agenda, right?"
Mhm.
And so I helped do a little bit of research about what bills were filed that year that were pro-Black, right? What bills, in education and housing and the environment and criminal justice reform, that kind of thing, that are truly, genuinely going to help our people. And then they work their channels, they do their press conferences, they have their meetings and that kind of thing, and they do their thing to push for those issues and to make sure they're advocating for us. And as a matter of fact, recently around the AP African American Studies ban, they put together, along with other organizations, a rally here in Tallahassee. I don't know if you had a chance to attend, but
Yeah, and I saw it. Yeah, I
okay,
watched it.
great.
I was at work.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So they did that, right? And so they stood up for what we care about, and that's really what they're all about. And they're going to have they do like a scholarship gala every year as well, to raise money for students to go to college and that kind of thing. So they're always doing things for the community, and they're just looking for bipartisan ways to work together to serve the Black community best.
I didn't know that they were bipartisan, had everybody, even Republican on. That's pretty good. That's pretty pretty good, man.
Yeah.
That's something that like that person that tweeted out. If you ever listen to this, we got it. Just go. You gotta do your digging for it. You gotta do your digging for it.
Yep.
But ending it off, man. If you can let everybody know where they can follow you at on social media, and what's next for Natasha Sutherland.
All right. All right. Yeah. So, well, first, I would love for y'all to follow my organizations.
Mhm.
So, Florida Watch is the handle for the nonprofit that I work at, and then our project is DeSantis Watch with an underscore at the end. So all of those handles on all platforms. And if folks want to follow my handle, it's my first and middle initial, so NE, and then my last name Sutherland, SUTHERLAND underscore, and you can find that on, I think, everything. Yeah, even TikTok. I still got to do more on that, but it's there.
Now y'all y'all got the Florida Watch TikTok on lock, man. So it's okay. Y'all got that on lock.
Right. I actually get paid to do that one. I don't get, my personal one is just, it's there.
Yeah, man. But what song you want to end it off with? I appreciate you for coming on too and agreeing to come on. It's a very good, informative episode for everybody.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you DMing me. I appreciate you reaching out and just asking. It's an honor to be able to be here. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you, opening up what you do, right, to inform people, like making sure that you're reaching people at every level. And maybe, who knows, I'm going to see you running for something someday. That'd be pretty cool.
Man, knock on wood. I pray, man.
Okay, I'm just saying. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
So if I could just plant that seed, and then I think the other thing I would love for people to do, don't lose hope. I know it feels hard. It feels like, oh, what do we do? But there are people working, and everybody can do something. We can all do something, and I just want to encourage people to figure out what that something is, and just do that and give it your best, right? And then one of those somethings is to get on our website at DeSantisWatch.org and learn more about how we can continue to hold this governor accountable and hopefully keep him out of the White House so that we're all better off in the end.
The way I was thinking about it today, real quick, when we get off, like the people in Mississippi, we can't take them. The people in Mississippi, Louisiana, if he becomes a president, they're not going to be able to take the type of restrictions and things they're trying to put on. He's going to put on. They're not going to be able to take that, man. So we got to go out there and move forward for them. They can't talk right now. We got the ability to kind of at least kind of stop what he's doing a little bit, or put it more out so more people hear about it, man. But that's why I'm trying to push as much as I can. At least do our duty. I feel like if it comes down to it, as long as we did what we were supposed to do.
You're doing it.
That's all that matters, man. That's all that matters. What song you want to end it off with today? Any song you choose, but you can't do anybody with Lil Wayne or anybody, none of them.
So I've really been into La Russell lately.
I heard people talk about him.
So now you got me pulling up my Spotify. Hold on.
I got you. Are you Spotify? You like Spotify?
Yeah. So Look at Me Now by La Russell is one of my favorites right now.
I got you. That's what we're gonna end it off with, man. Well, Natasha, I appreciate you for coming on. Appreciate you once again, man. Appreciate y'all for listening to another episode of Smoke Screen Podcast. Appreciate y'all, man.
Show up to the meetings. They get town halls. Like, follow them on social media because they'll advertise stuff like that. And as soon as they make the mistake of doing a town hall, you better be there and let them know what the problem is and make sure you're public about it. You don't have to it doesn't even matter how you say it. Like, you just make your voice heard.